You didn't get a pay rise this year. You think you did. The number on your payslip went up. But the government just took a bigger slice of that number. And it never had to raise a single tax rate to do it. No announcement, no headline, no chancellor standing at a podium saying, "We're taxing you more." Just silence. And a slowly shrinking bank balance that nobody can quite explain. This is the tax nobody voted for, and almost nobody in Britain has heard its name.
It's called fiscal drag, and right now it's quietly draining more money out of UK households than most actual tax rises ever have. Here's why this matters this year specifically. Wages in the UK have been rising. Not fast, but rising, partly just to keep up with years of inflation. On paper, that sounds like good news. More money in your pocket. Except the tax system was never designed to notice that inflation happened. And that gap between what your wage looks like and what it's actually worth is where the quiet tax lives.
So how does it actually work? Every year, income tax has thresholds. The point where you start paying tax and the point where you jump into a higher bracket. Normally, those thresholds move. They get adjusted upward, roughly in line with inflation or wage growth, so that a pay rise that just matches rising prices doesn't accidentally push you into paying more tax on money that isn't really extra. It's just keeping pace with a more expensive world.
In 2021, the government did something quieter than a tax hike. They froze those thresholds. Not lowered them, just stopped moving them. Locked them in place until 2028. At the time, it barely made headlines. It sounded almost boring. A freeze isn't a cut, it isn't a rise. It sounds like nothing happened at all. But inflation didn't freeze. Wages didn't freeze. Only the thresholds did.
And that's the mechanism. As your wages rise to keep up with a more expensive life, more and more of your income gets pulled across a threshold that hasn't moved in years. You cross into the 40% bracket earlier than you would have. You start paying tax on income that used to be tax-free earlier than you would have. None of this required a new law, a new rate, or a single vote in Parliament announcing your taxes are going up.
The system just let inflation do the work. Here's the uncomfortable math. Independent analysis from the Office for Budget Responsibility and the Institute for Fiscal Studies has estimated this threshold freeze will pull millions of additional people into higher tax bands by the time it ends, and raise tens of billions of pounds for the Treasury, quietly, without a single politician having to defend a tax rise in an election campaign.
Compare that to how a normal tax rise works. Raise the rate by 1 percentage point, and it's a front-page story. Opposition parties attack it, voters remember it. There's accountability because there's visibility. Fiscal drag has none of that. It's a tax rise with no announcement, no vote, and no name that most people recognise. The Chancellor gets to say, technically, truthfully, that they didn't raise income tax. And they're right. They just left the goalposts exactly where they were and let everyone else walk into them. This is where it stops being a policy footnote and starts being something bigger. A preview of how modern governments can raise money without ever being seen to raise money.
Freeze a number instead of cutting a benefit. Freeze a threshold instead of raising a rate. Let time and inflation do the politically difficult part for you. And it isn't just income tax. The same quiet mechanism shows up in frozen pension allowances, frozen inheritance tax thresholds, frozen savings limits. A whole architecture of numbers that used to move with the economy, now standing still, while everything around them keeps rising.
Multiply that across tens of millions of taxpayers across 7 years, and you get one of the largest stealth tax increases in modern British history, one that will never appear as a single dramatic headline because it was never designed to. So the real question isn't whether this tax exists. The numbers already confirm that it does. The real question is this. If a government can raise more money than most tax rises combined without ever having to say the words, "We are raising your taxes," what exactly stops them from doing it again?